If we could turn that team into mostly software, so one or two developers could have the productivity of a team of 20, then, that would be a big business and something we could really, scale over time. That was the kernel. The kernel was turn the product hacker team from Brightroll into software. And we started in 2019 and we've been building ever since.
Hey everyone, welcome to Flow State. This is a brand new show brought to you by Pipedream, where we will be showcasing the best of the best in the world of automation and RevOps agencies to hear how they've been able to turn their client automation dreams into business realities. We're going to be bringing you the top leaders across the world of automation, API connections, and really everything in between. This week's guest started his career in investment banking after studying economics at Yale. He also earned an MBA in entrepreneurship studies at Stanford before going to earn the equivalent of a PhD in entrepreneurship himself. He's also the founder and CEO of Brightroll, which was acquired by Yahoo in 2014 for $640 million. Now he's an investor in over 100 companies, as well as the founder and CEO of Pipedream, which we're going to be jumping into today. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Tod Sacerdoti to the show. Tod, welcome to Not Just a Pipe Dream.
Thanks for having me.
So before we dive into to Pipedream and how that really came to be, really just wanted to dive backward into some of your experience leading up to Pipedream. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of those, what I mentioned as your PhD in entrepreneurship?
Sure. So, I worked for a handful of startups in the early 2000s in Silicon Valley, and I started my first company in 2006, which was called Brightroll. And I was really the first product manager, and my co-founder was the CTO, the technical leader of the company. And we built that company over about 8 years until it was acquired by Yahoo. And by the time we sold the company, it was about 450 employees and 350 million in revenue. We learned a lot on that journey. We made a ton of mistakes, but it's definitely an experience that plays a big part in kind of what I do now and my career in general.
I love that. And what was, and you don't need to name specifics in the mistakes because we all make them and really we learn the most from some of those mistakes. What's one of the biggest mistakes or maybe opportunities that you dove in with Pipedream as well?
I mean, I don't know if this was a mistake that we made at Brightroll or just a mistake of being in ad tech in general, but when you're building software, it's very important to hire and attract amazing engineering talent. And one of the challenges with building products in the advertising space is it's really not a category that engineers are naturally drawn to. It's not a category that I think people graduate with computer science degrees saying, I want to spend my career optimizing ads. So we had a tremendous challenge, attracting great talent at Brightroll. And I think it was something we, within our category, did amazingly well. But I'd say in aggregate, we just struggled with the entire, sort of history of the company. And when we decided to focus on what we were building next after the whole team had been acquired by Yahoo and we worked there for a handful of years, I think we were all just universally adamant that we weren't going to work on a product or a challenge that wasn't a product or challenge that engineers were excited to solve. And so obviously we build products today for technical people and sort of, developers are in that category. And generally it hasn't been a challenge for us is to attract great talent to work on this problem.
Yeah, and it's been such a fun problem, and it's really interesting to see how your teams could eat their own dog food, and developers developing tools for developers, I think, is also really interesting. But let's talk a little bit more further about that actual beginning of deciding, hey, we are actually going to start Pipedream. Can you take us back to what was that pivotal moment that really inspired you to say, you know what, we are going to start Pipedream?
Yeah, so we when the company was acquired by Yahoo in 2014, we really had two engineering teams. The first engineering team was sort of the core engineering team that did everything related to our programmatic marketplace, was responsible for almost 100% of our revenue. And we had this second team, which we originally had started, we called them the product hackers. And it was like a tiger team of one or two people that could essentially spin up technical infrastructure to solve real problems, but was originally designed to kind of do alpha versions of products or test new ideas, and move quickly, but not sort of be in the way of kind of the traditional product development and engineering processes. And by the time that company was acquired, that team was almost 20 people, and the infrastructure they had built was almost as significant as the core infrastructure that ran the company. And so we had seen sort of firsthand when you have a small technical team that's resourced appropriately, what impact they could have on the business kind of outside of core engineering. And when we got back together as a founding team, we said, all right, we want to start a company. What is a product we've built before that we know has value, we know people will pay for? We sort of kept coming back to this product hacker team. And the thought process was if we could turn that team into mostly software, so one or two developers could have the productivity of a team of 20, then that would be a big business and something we could really scale over time. That was the kernel. The kernel was turn the product hacker team from Brightroll into software, and we started in 2019, and we've been building ever since.
And that's fantastic. And that was one of the most appealing things that I thought when I was coming in to join Pipedream was this team has been successful. They've been to the top of the mountain selling this, selling the company obviously to Yahoo, and then being able to come back together to build again. And I thought that that was something that was really appealing, and I think is really core to the foundation of the company. Now, when you guys all met as this team, could you tell us a little bit more about some of the specific challenges or gaps in the market that you noticed that you're like, you know what, we need to ultimately create this to fill this exact void?
Yeah, I mean, when we thought back to this product hacker team that we had, sort of built and operated for multiple years, most of that team was building infrastructure on AWS, specifically AWS Lambda, which was their serverless functions as a service product. And while that product was extremely powerful, the problems we were solving were kind of like the traditional iceberg where, you just see the tip of the problem and you say, oh, well, these serverless platforms like Lambda can just solve them. But the reality is once you wade into these problems, most of them are being solved by, 3 or 5 other AWS services in conjunction with AWS Lambda. And the person who's building those solutions needs to be very technical, often like senior backend engineers, really understand the AWS infrastructure well, not only have access to those systems, but have the approvals to go build complex systems on AWS. And ultimately, we just came back to the point of we could abstract so much of this with software and sort of massively lower the bar for technical talent that needs to be able to build these solutions. And if we do that, then there's just a massive audience of potential customers for that solution. So I think about it holistically as trying to make what we had done previously just dramatically easier. And hopefully get to a point where a developer said, wow, this is just 10 times better than building it in my existing cloud infrastructure.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And now we're on that topic. I know you mentioned Lambda, but a lot of, I guess in the whole space, if we're taking a big step back, either when you're looking at development, you either have the option of going and building something out in that Lambda, or a lot of teams are also looking to a lot of the traditional no code tools as well. Could you tell us a little bit more for those who are unfamiliar, explaining what this like no low code, as well as even the Lambda areas are, and maybe some of those tools and how they differentiate from some of the traditional coding methods?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think of it as often people describe it as a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, there's no code tools where knowledge workers can, connect APIs, build automations, and get a lot of stuff done. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's products like Google Cloud Functions, AWS Lambda, and other serverless functions as a service product where you can build, highly technical solutions where you're writing code. And oftentimes when people talk about low code products like Pipedream, they sort of think of, oh, well, that's in the middle of the spectrum. And I think that's actually really the wrong way to look at the category and the problem set, because the reality is nobody pays Pipedream a significant amount of money that doesn't know how to write code. So it's not really a spectrum as much as it is like a cliff. There's probably 50 to 100 million people in the United States that could use a no-code platform to get stuff done. And those products are truly amazing for those use cases. You don't need to know anything about APIs. You don't need to know how to read documentation. You don't need to understand anything about code, and you can be highly productive. And there's quite a few companies that have been, really successful in that category. Once you get into, I need to write some code to solve a problem, which is custom to my use case, or is something just specific that is not standard for all users on a no-code platform, you immediately hit a wall on those tools. And that's generally when you're either moving that solution off of that platform, you're hiring a freelancer if you're not technical, or you're actually writing the code yourself if you are. And that's really where the Pipedream product kind of begins, and all of the functions as a service products obviously live.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense. We hear a lot of these people who are moving more towards these no code tools, but also are hitting that ledge, as you're mentioning, or hitting that barrier of like, I can't go further, or it doesn't have this specific function that I need. How do you see the low code impacting the future of really how teams are going to look at software development and their overall business operations?
I mean, I think at the high level, it's really about developer productivity. So whether you're the individual developer making a decision about how you spend your time, or if you're a manager managing a team of developers that has a long backlog of things to get done, whenever you reach for a tool, you're basically making the decision, is this going to be much faster for me to reach for this tool to solve this problem, or for me to solve the problem myself and essentially, write the code from scratch? And I think what's unique about developers is developers in almost all circumstances could solve their own problem if they wanted. So it's not a question of, am I technically capable of solving this product or problem without a tool? The question is that the right business decision, for me, my team, my company, et cetera? So I think about low code in general as just a massive accelerant in developer productivity, particularly around use cases that, involve integrating, other third-party applications, or doing things like running code on a schedule. Those are things that like these low code platforms are extremely efficient at providing solutions for.
And you mentioned a couple of them already, but obviously the importance of like integrating third-party tools. What are some of the trends if we're talking specifically on automation, right? In these different workflows and connecting platforms, what trends are you currently seeing in this automation and workflow space?
That's a great question. I mean, I'd say maybe the most important macro trend is just the proliferation of new applications and APIs. So when we started Pipedream, I think in my wildest imagination, we were considering integrating, somewhere between 200 or 300 applications over the kind of trajectory of the company. We've recently crossed 2,000 applications integrated. I think it's very likely we'll be in the 5 to 10,000 apps integrated in the next couple of years. So that's a huge trend that I completely misinterpreted at the beginning, which is just the proliferation of apps. I would say second is that the use cases have become much more complex. And as a result, like the surface area that these platforms like Pipedream need to address is much broader. So I think when we originally started the company, we thought, okay, we need a key value store, so people can like manage state in the product. But don't think we realized that the integration into databases broadly would be, a huge part of the demand of our product. And that's something we've worked on over the last year. I think when we originally started, we thought much more about code first, but more like code only. We didn't think we'd need to build primitives for things like looping and branching or paths or parallels, which in the AWS world is kind of in the step functions product. That's something we've worked on a lot over the last year and have built into the product. So I think just much more complex use cases, which with many more sort of like built out primitives, is a significant trend. And then I guess I would say lastly is we're being asked now in many cases to have Pipedream work within the context of other pieces of software. It could be the apps that our customers are building and they want to embed Pipedream in those apps in a more embedded way. It might be they want to use Pipedream as the back end for a tool that they're using as the front end. And there's lots of other examples of that, but I would say just sort of expecting the tools that you use to, play well with each other and expand the number of potential use cases is definitely a trend we're seeing.
That's incredible. And it sounds like you had to take a lot of this feedback and really following trends and making some pivots to ultimately go to where the market is or where it should be. Now, I'm curious too, to dive a little deeper of like understanding, personally for you, like why is it so important to stay at the forefront of this automation technology? And ultimately, how do you do that to keep Pipedream ahead?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's interesting about integration platforms or automation platforms broadly is they tend to be very sticky products. There's like, a handful, half a dozen or so of multi-billion-dollar companies that honestly were companies that were in the like 90s and the 2000s that have just stuck around because enterprises, adopt these products and they sort of build workflows on top of them. And then they're just kind of like part of the, sort of core infrastructure of that company for its life. But I think that the vision of Pipedream is not to sort of build a sticky product that people use and then move on to the next generation. Like our vision is to be the best product for this set of problems we're trying to solve. And so we want to be, absolutely on the forefront of what's being done on the integration and automation space. And maybe the best example is kind of the AI, wave that we saw last year. We had, before OpenAI really launched ChatGPT, we already had almost every major AI product integrated into the platform. And that was actually because we were using those integrations internally. We were testing a lot of those AI APIs to build solutions for ourselves. And so when that wave happened, we were a huge beneficiary of that wave. I think there was one point where over 30% of all serverless apps built on Pipedream were using one of these AI APIs over that 3-month period last year when it was just crazy white hot. But again, we don't want that to be like a one-off. Like our goal is whatever the next category of APIs or apps that's important, or the next use case for integration platforms that are top of mind, we absolutely want to be part of that conversation and be building products to meet those needs.
And before we get into more of the Pipedream specifics and where some of the differentiators are, I'm really curious to hear, like, one of the main problems that we're solving for is, as you mentioned, integrations and automations. Why is automation becoming such a critical component to businesses today?
I mean, I think it's almost self-evident. I mean, the number of processes that either are done manually by humans or are not done at all because they take too much of humans' time is just such a significant amount of the total work product created by most companies that are operating today. And so, as you just think of like, how do I save my employees time to work on higher value things that maybe are core to our differentiation or unique to our value proposition, as opposed to processes that people are doing manually, and I think in many cases just aren't doing because they just don't have the capacity and the time to do it. That's where the value of these platforms comes. Now, I think on the most simplistic side of that, people think of use cases like, sending customers an email or being notified when something happens. But now I'd say, today we're seeing people operate fully functional applications that are doing very complex workflows on our product. And so I think they're far beyond like automating a process you would do manually, and they're really just opening up more advanced things that you could never have done manually on your own.
And I'm really truly blown away just hearing more from customers and understanding the really truly the depth and variety of these integrations that they're looking for. They're looking for different ERP solutions, to like a quoting tool, to something else, to Stripe, maybe, to you name it. I mean, there's so many different ways that people are leveraging Pipedream. Now let's start diving in to some of the specifics and some of the differentiators. So, how does Pipedream differentiate from some of the other automation platforms that are out on the market today? And even for some of those businesses who may not be using Pipedream, what are some of the key benefits that they're missing out on by not leveraging the platform?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I'd say when people initially enter this category, they sort of think of the brands they're familiar with generally are no-code platforms. And so I sort of think of it as like, if a no-code platform solves your problems, then great. Like, you should use a no-code platform because any employee in your company can use that tool. And knowledge workers are empowered to do things they could never do before. So those products have existed for 15, 20 years, and they're great products. If you are at a stage where no-code tools don't solve your problem, which is essentially anybody who wants to solve a use case kind of outside of the most popular API calls that you can use on these apps, then you're generally going to need to either write code yourself or hire somebody to write code for you. And those are bespoke use cases unique to your company or your workflow that open up additional possibilities beyond a no-code tool. That's generally when people start with a product like Pipedream. The other way people start with a product like Pipedream is just if they come from the development world and they would just never use a product that doesn't give them code level control of everything they do. So if someone's already a developer and they're coming to this, broader category around, I'm going to write code to solve this problem, the question is, what tool do I use? Then generally they wouldn't even look at a no-code tool in the first place. So once you end up in the situation where either you're looking to write code, hiring someone to write code, or you're comfortable writing code yourself, and that's your sort of natural path, then there's a much narrower set of companies you would consider. I'd say there's really two categories. The first category is tools that are purpose-built for this problem, and that's companies like Pipedream. And then there's generic platforms that let you run code in the cloud, and that's generally functions as a service products like Lambda, Cloud Functions, et cetera.
Right. And what would you say some of these unique features are of Pipedream that really truly make it indispensable for businesses looking to try to streamline some of these workflows and integrations?
Yeah, I mean, I think about it as any of the core elements of building one of these serverless applications is an area in which differentiation can emerge. So, how quickly can you get an HTTP endpoint to send data to work with it? Once you get that data, how quickly can you integrate a third-party application? Like, do I have to write the code for that integration, or do I get it for free? What if I want to make a modification to that connector to a third-party app? Can I easily just pull the code and make a quick change myself? Then once I have, one of these applications up and running and I want to test like a new set of data or a new use case, is that taking me seconds, minutes, or is that taking me, hours and days? And then, of course, once you get all the way through the build and testing process, which I think for most of our customers is actually the majority of the time they spend with Pipedream in the very beginning, then how do I deploy that solution? Am I deploying that to my own infrastructure? Am I deploying that to a cloud service? Am I going to have to maintain it? And then, of course, lastly, let's say I get all the way to that point and something goes wrong, which it inherently does. Like, how do I debug it? Am I going into logs myself? Do I have like a UI where I can easily triage the problem and fix it? And I think at each step of that, like build, test, deploy, and then maintain workflow, we've built a lot of tooling to make a developer's job just a lot easier.
Now, I know we talked a lot about some of the features and things that people like, but are there any particular success stories that really hold some type of special meaning to you or really exemplify the impact that Pipedream has been able to have for clients?
That's a really good question. There's a couple examples that come to mind. The first is we've interacted with a lot of what I would consider to be, technical founders or early employees at companies that are really resource constrained. This is kind of like the classic 10 to 20 person Silicon Valley startup with, a small amount of venture money or bootstrapping it. And we've built relationships with a lot of these customers over time, and they share with us like how much they've been able to get done with Pipedream as their sort of integration platform, as opposed to, hiring a team to build these solutions for them or distracting their core development team, which is like building their core product. And oftentimes like those, I find those stories just like super inspiring because we built a product for ourselves to increase, our productivity. And we were in that position at our last company. Like we needed this tool. So to kind of see, early stage companies with, highly sophisticated technical leaders getting that additional value and just sort of, getting more success than they would have otherwise, I'd say that's like, probably the first category that really hits home for us. I would say secondly is I love situations where you see multiple teams within the same company, adopt the product. So we see situations where, one team, say like the security and compliance team within a company is using Pipedream to solve like very specific problems to their organization. It could be, like checkups on certain systems they have or notifications or when issues emerge, or just sort of broad testing of systems they have live. And again, it's like a horizontal product. They've been able to adopt it in a specific vertical that they care about, and they're getting success. And then we'll find out that, another team in the company, which is completely different, right? It could be like a professional services team that's using Pipedream to build integrations for key customers to like unblock revenue. And we're sitting there going, wow, like, we didn't build this product for one of those teams, right? We built it as a horizontal solution, but to see multiple teams getting value for different use cases in the same company is just, exciting and inspiring for us.
And it's really amazing to see the breadth of these different teams and in the different conversations that you're having, because there really isn't a trend on like an industry or a specific, like any company could automate any manual tasks, or most companies are trying to find better ways to connect different tools across platforms. So I think it's really a no-brainer to have a tool that's easy to do that with. Now let's address some of the misconceptions maybe about low-code tools. Are there any of these common ones that about low-code tools specifically that you frequently encounter?
Well, there's one that has always bothered me is, I think it's kind of a standard developer position to take that, like, I'm not going to use a low code tool because I'm a good developer and I can write code and I love code. So why would I use a tool that hides the code or obfuscates it in some way? And I think that's a real big misperception about Pipedream. Like we sort of say code level control when you need it and no code when you don't. And we never prevent the user from having access to code to solve problems. So I think it's kind of a immediate response that some people have without really understanding the products at hand. And I think they really just need to change the mindset, which is low code doesn't necessarily mean not the power of code. It just means your job's a lot easier as a developer, but you still have that sort of that control and power that you want. I'd say that's probably number one. Other misperceptions about low code. I mean, I will be honest, I don't even like the term low code for, sort of specifically this reason, which is it's like there's either no code platforms or coding platforms. The low code almost like hides the value. The value is less work. It's not necessarily less code. You still get the code. You just don't have to write it, right? So low code, I've never really loved that. And I think that flows kind of into the prior misperception as well.
I think one of the other big misconceptions is that, like, to your point, a lot of these developers are like, "Hey, I could write in Lambda. Why do I need to go to anything else?" For somebody who is already comfortable and is a great developer, why should they consider leveraging Pipedream? And what are some of those unique things that are really are more tough to replicate if they were going to a Lambda?
I mean, I don't think it's that different from, selecting any other tool, right? Like you could build your own analytics product or logging solution, but you don't. Like you reach for, Datadog or Sentry or some other product. So really the question is just like, what's the best tool for the job, right? And I understand people's default perspective is I could build it myself because great developers can build a lot of things. But I think ultimately it's like, where do you want to spend your time? Like, do you want to spend your time building something that you could get that provides tremendous efficiency and spend that time on maybe the part of your product, which is differentiated in its competitive market, right? Or do you want to, build an analytics solution or an integration solution yourself? Is that really the best use of your time? So I think it all comes down to, what's the right tool for the job?
Exactly right. And I know a lot of people, and in having a lot of these conversations with partners and developers, and even some of these people who are comfortable with no code tools, one of the things that people are really interested in is utilizing the AI code generators that we have in product. What's the big value there, and what makes you so excited about being able to leverage AI to try to make some of this, what used to be really complex, a lot more simplified?
Yeah, I think that the sort of our job is to close the gap between like having an idea and running it in production. Like generally speaking, that's our goal, right? Like people have lots of ideas. Every engineering team has a backlog of hundreds of things they'd like to build. And so if we can close that gap between that idea and having it in production working, we can see a lot of value for our product and for our business. So to me, AI code gen is really about, a sort of like a step function in closing that gap. A lot of times there's like a new API that a developer hasn't worked with before, or there's something on like the edge of their capabilities that they may not be familiar in writing or may need to do like work or reading or figure out how to solve. And AI code gen just essentially, gives them the scaffolding of a first version of that solution. Like it's amazing when it actually solves the problem entirely, but that's not the requirement. Like it can maybe solve the problem entirely, or maybe it can give you, get you 80% of the way there, or get you kickstarted on the process of solving that problem. So I just think about it as like the time from idea to value being reduced. And AI CodeGen is one example, but not the only example of things, we're doing to try to close that gap.
Right. Right. And now, obviously, this approach of being able to help check a lot of these items off that long to-do list and reducing that time to value is really crucial. Now, if somebody were to ask you, like, what guides Pipedream's approach to really helping businesses automate some of these workflows for both their clients or even their own business, what would you tell them?
Walk me through the question again in terms of like helping them figure out what to build.
Yeah, I mean, I guess is there any big like approach to being able to help these businesses approach automation? Like how should they be looking at automating inside of their own businesses?
Yeah, I mean, it's most of the solutions on products like Pipedream are pretty bespoke. So it's our job is to basically communicate the capabilities of the product and give, examples and use cases that other customers have solved and the impact that those solutions have had on their business without like being prescriptive about exactly what a company should build. Like, I don't think it's true that, every company should build an anti-fraud, application that's operating on top of their technical infrastructure because their customers aren't running code for, I mean, they're not running code for their customers like we are, right? So that's a solution we built, but I don't think that that's necessarily a solution that everyone should build. But on the flip side, it's also true that, we were able to integrate our customer database into a serverless application to build an anti-fraud tool in a matter of hours that's had a huge impact on our business. So I want customers to understand like the possibilities are there around how fast you can build something that like, saves you money or accelerates your revenue or lets you address a new customer segment. And really just like open the eyes of our customers to what is possible without like telling them what to do.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of really showing people really what that art of possible is, and really what the true opportunity is that they could go after. Now, I think a lot of that falls into being able to educate people on the importance of automation. So, why do you believe educating clients about automation is crucial for their own company success?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is this is one of the things we don't have to tell our customers. Like they're being told it from every possible angle. Like employees want things to be automated. They want to be more productive in their jobs. Owners of businesses want the businesses to be more efficient and more profitable and spending their money on things where they feel like they're growing their business or increasing their revenue and not on like their internal operations. And ultimately developers are very sophisticated at what is my level of productivity? What impact am I having on like a daily, weekly, monthly basis? And are there tools that can help me do my job? So I think in general, we sort of like don't have to convince people that integrating software that they're paying for into other software that they're paying for is to their advantage, or adding efficiency or increased revenue to their business is good. Those things are generally understood. I think what's not always well understood, and that's really our challenge, is how we fit into that from a solutions perspective.
And now, what advice, if somebody hasn't started, if they understand, they're hearing from their teams, there's all these different red flashing lights that we need to address, but somebody hasn't really started on that automation journey yet. What advice would you have for them just getting started?
I mean, I go back to my days at Brightroll when I was managing these product teams, and I think about it in terms of backlogs. It's like every team, every company, every organization has a list of things they want to get done, right? And people often get like overwhelmed by, wow, I've got 176 things we'd love this internal team to build. Like, where do I get started? And it's like, just start with the thing that is most important or very high up on the list of most important, and you think you could get done in a short amount of time, and prove success. Like do that demo to the internal team or to the management team or to your investors and show what has been built in a matter of hours instead of days, and then tackle the next one and tackle the next one. It's like, rather than trying to take this perspective of we need to like boil the ocean, it's like just get to success as quickly as you can and then rinse and repeat over time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And one of the cool things I love like about you're saying, let's start small and let's get a chunk of something that we know that we could get done and move fast. It just brought me to something we do here at Pipedream called Facts. Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about that? I know it's not a new concept for people in the development world, but tell them about Facts and really what some of why you see that so valuable of taking a week out of our quarter to be able to accommodate for that.
Yeah, so we've been doing this both at this company and prior companies for a long time. These things called hacks, which are can be a day, they can be up to as much as a week. They can have a theme like onboarding customers, or generating new top of funnel demand for our product, or figuring out how to integrate AI into the product. Where we basically take everyone, stop the press, stop everything, exclusively focus on a narrow set of problems, usually problems that people have self-identified that they want to work on, and see what we can get in production, like live in our product, in either 24 hours or in a week of time. It serves a bunch of different purposes. One is obviously from a cultural standpoint, it's just nice to get a break from the day-to-day grind of working through backlogs and building product, and work on something that's personal to you, inspiring to you, something you're excited about. So there's a cultural element to it. Second is there's a lot of things that move faster when you only have a day or a week to solve them. So you can't have multiple meetings. You can't, talk to every stakeholder and, triangulate every possible. You just have to get shit done and come up with something that, is good enough and is live. And I would say lastly, it's just, there's something about the pressure, the excitement, the thrill of knowing you're going to demo something at the end of this, period of time to your colleagues and show them what you accomplished. And so, we have some people that are showing up early in the morning, working late at night, kind of like thinking about it for, a couple of weeks in advance, just like trying to get ready to really produce something, exciting and impressive in a short amount of time. And I'm just always blown away by, what people create in those. We call them facts because it's Pipedream hacks. that's why it's called facts. But I'm always blown away by what people produce.
And it's really amazing. And I think that from I went through my first facts a couple weeks ago, and from a firsthand perspective, the cultural perspective, I mean, being able to work with other team members that you haven't worked with before to solve a common problem is incredibly rewarding. But on top of that, I mean, it's an opportunity to educate these other, because I'm on the go-to-market team, but we have other teams who are the developers, and they don't get to see that same angle as we do. So being able to work together and share that other common a common understanding to help solve problems together is really rewarding. And on top of that, I think really, as you mentioned, people come up with these ideas themselves or after we have some of the themes. But I think allowing people to come up with their own ideas really gives another level of ownership. And I think that was another awesome thing. And I'm really excited for future facts here too. Now, as we start to transition into talking more about, the future of automation and Pipedream as well, what do you envision for the future of automation in workflow management in general?
Well, I think AI is going to be a big part of the story. It's always hard, at the beginning of these emerging trends to like predict exactly how it's going to play out. I think it's very true that AI is going to get better and better and better at writing code. I think we would all agree on that. And so as AI gets better and better at writing code, it means the types of problems that Pipedream can solve quickly for customers will go up. Additionally, because a lot of the components in Pipedream's product are source available on GitHub, AI will be over time will be able to write a lot more of those components and sort of add value to the platform for all customers. So I'm really optimistic on both the like speed of development, but also like the breadth of pre-built components, like the impact that AI will have on those. So that's like one big category. I'd say the second category is we spend a lot of time internally thinking about how our product can be used in other products, other applications that exist. Historically, Pipedream's really been like a standalone application that developers are using for their own use cases, like internal tools or in production apps that they're building. But we haven't like really thought about how Pipedream works in a fully embedded environment within a customer's application. We launched a product called Pipedream Connect, which is kind of like our first foray into that area. And I think it's absolutely a trend. And the future of this category is figuring out how these products ultimately get embedded, into the apps of our customers. And I think that to combine the 2 points I made is there's going to be a future where some of these apps that we are integrating in are AI applications themselves. So it's very easy to imagine, an application that is able to write code, spin up workflows on Pipedream's infrastructure and run them on behalf of end customers, where we're not, in that case, even interacting with a human developer. We're actually interacting with a programmatic developer. And I think how we navigate that and how the category figures that over time, will be an absolutely critical part of our kind of like, the narrative of the journey of our company.
Yeah, and how do you, obviously AI, embedded apps, how do you envision Pipedream preparing to meet some of these challenges and really more important, the opportunities that lie ahead with some of these potential hurdles?
I mean, we always start by just talking to our customers. I think it's like we can sit in our office in a conference room and, brainstorm, until we, we fall asleep. But I think that those types of discussions are interesting, but it's way more valuable to actually talk to customers that are solving real problems in the market today, whether or not they're using our specific product and figuring out, what problems they have and how we can help them solve it. And I think that within the kind of embedded application space for these integration products, I see a lot of the same trends that we saw at the beginning of the journey of Pipedream, which is, developers are often being told to use tools that significantly restrict their ability to write code, significantly restrict their ability to access like the core elements of the integrations, like in some cases, literally down to like, do they have the credentials of the user they're building an automation for, or is there some third-party intermediary that has that information and essentially proxies them and blocks their ability to access that information themselves? So I think if you just start with our customer as a developer, what does a developer want in terms of like a world-class developer experience? What parts of that involve them writing the code themselves or having access to the code that's running on their behalf? And then like, what primitives and tools and other services they want on top of that. And as long as we always focus on, the customer first, I think we'll sort of, we'll land in the right place in terms of what we actually release for customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were mentioning, some of these these developers and things, like maybe they're not a developer, maybe they're just somebody who's using another no code solution. If when you're talking to somebody like that who may not have used Pipedream before, why should they consider leveraging Pipedream over potentially one of the other no code, low code solutions, or even going to a full Lambda?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of said it earlier, which is like, if you don't write code and you're not planning on hiring someone to write code for you, like Pipedream's not the right product for you. Like the product is for technical users. So if someone's kind of like bundling us into the pool of companies that are for people that aren't technical, I would just sort of, drive them to the right solution for their, technical capabilities and what they're trying to address. I'd say if somebody is already in the state of, I need to adopt a tool or build something myself, and I'm very comfortable writing code and I want the best product for that job, I would walk them through the value propositions of Pipedream and how we enable developers to be more efficient solving these problems. And usually that involves some element of their specific use case. So, okay, you're trying to, I don't know, pick a random example. You're trying to build an automation around contacting customers in a certain situation, leveraging your product database to, drive that communication. And maybe you need to pull records from a CRM or some other system. It's like, okay, walk me through how you're going to solve that. Like, what are you going to build yourself? What are you going to get out of the box? Like, how much time do you have to spend on this? Is this something that you want to maintain? Do you have a team to maintain it? Do you want to be able to move on from this project to the next project and not have like a new puppy that you need to take care of for the next 5 years? So I would kind of just like walk through their specific use case, what they're thinking in terms of the solution. And then if Pipedream is a great solution for that problem, then I would explain, how I think they could get it done and why it would be more efficient using our product.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for somebody who may not be that technical person, I know one of the things of why I have a job here as well is we saw some big value in being able to leverage our network of partners to be able to
Yeah.
help build this. Can you tell us tell everybody a little bit more about what you see in this, the partnership motion, and ultimately, if somebody isn't that technical person or doesn't have those technical resources, why they should leverage a Pipedream partner in order to fulfill that need?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the use cases generally don't change. It's really the technical capabilities of the individual to solve them, or like their knowledge set of how they could be solved. And this is where partners are extremely valuable for a company like ours, because partners are generally, the ones we're talking to, are in the business of solving these types of problems for their customers. So, a client comes and says, I have this solution that needs to be built, and they're looking for that partner to recommend a vendor, recommend a set of tools. There are partners that will build things from scratch and run them in AWS or Google Cloud. And there are partners that are, sort of designed to pick vendors that are, purpose built for these solutions. So, I think a big part of our partner program is communicating out to these partners, like, we value them. We listen to their feedback. We're here to help them grow their business. Like, if there's things we don't solve that they need solved, we will solve them. Like, they need to manage multiple clients through a singular account. That's something we support and will continue to invest in. So I think about it as like, we're open for business with partners, and that means we need to, listen to them the same way we listen to an end developer and make sure that we're solving their unique needs of using our product. And if that requires us to help them like sell Pipedream into their client, then that's something we absolutely will do and support them in doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know big co-selling is another big initiative. And especially from the partner side, I love jumping into some of those sales conversations. Now, as we're starting to talk, future as well, what are some of the goals for Pipedream over the next couple of years? And ultimately, how will they impact our clients?
That's a really good question. I mean, first and foremost, there's a lot of surface area still to build in the product. So I don't think a lot of those things would be huge surprises to at least, advanced users of our product. But we want to just continue to close any gaps between, the prior generations of products like AWS Step Functions and our product, or prior generations of serverless functions as service products in our product. So I would say, people would say we are, feature rich at this point, but we are not feature complete, in the sense that there's just a lot more to build. So I'd say first and foremost, like, they should expect continued feature development and improvement of the product. I would say secondly, we are early in the integration journey. We're 2,200 apps in. There's a long road. So if you're a partner that's working in the healthcare vertical, or you're a partner that's in the finance vertical, or you're a partner in some vertical that maybe we haven't had a huge amount of volume of customers to date, like we're still planning on supporting those categories. And so I think people will see both, sort of depth within categories we already support. It could be like HRIS or CRM, but also sort of breadth in terms of categories we don't currently support, that we just need like a cluster of customers working in those areas. And then I'd say third, I just think it's, we are making tremendous investments around how our product works with, other AI tools that exist in market, and what parts of our product are, sort of like AI first inside the product itself. We've made a lot more progress, I would say, on the code gen side, but that's really not the only area in which we obviously have customer support is almost entirely done through AI now. So there's a lot more areas I think that will be, sort of further embedded in the product. My hope is that all three of those categories just, again, make the product easier to use and allow it to address a broader set of use cases than it does today.
That is all incredibly exciting stuff, Todd. As we wrap up here, any closing advice for businesses hesitant to embrace automation, or any other low code tools as well?
It's funny. Of all the things I'm asked to do, I'm very rarely asked to convince people to make their businesses more efficient. I think my advice is, ignore the efficiencies that these tools provide at your peril. If your competitor is automating internal processes with no-code tools on the marketing and sales side of the house, and has their development team using, low-code tools to build out, internal workflows or production applications, or, things that unblock revenue for their customers, like, you're in a worse position for not being engaged on that front. So I guess it's an invitation, a warning. I don't know what it is, but I don't think this is a Pipedream specific thing. Like, this train is leaving the station, and I recommend everyone get sophisticated about it, because if you're not getting sophisticated, it's likely your competitor is.
Absolutely. So make sure that you're staying on top of all your competitive situations and making sure you're staying well ahead as well. Todd, how can people learn more about Pipedream, get in touch with us, and really be able to explore some more of these customized automation solutions?
Sure. We have a public Slack for people that are like that level engaged. They want to know what's going on, interact with our founding, engineering team. We get a lot of feature requests, and, there's a lot of good dialogue there. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Tod, the company's at Pipedream. We have a lot of content on YouTube. We have Pipedream University, which kind of gives people a tutorial of how to get started. And we do a lot of demo videos. So those are the best places to, consume the content. And I think more than anything, try the product out if you're, technically capable of doing so. And I think you'll understand the value pretty quickly.
Thank you so much, Todd. Thank you for your time. And for everybody listening, thank you so much as well. We'd love to hear more from you as well. So if you do have any more questions about automation, or really topics in general that you'd like us to talk more about, make sure that you're please getting in touch with us. And don't forget to check out, as Todd mentioned, our website for more of those resources, tutorials, and really to get started with your automation journey as well. Until next time, happy building. More flow, less work, more flow, less work.